Follow this process. This is how we write ad copy here. That gets output into a spreadsheet, and then someone has to confirm that that's okay before it can go into the account.
We've got two guys that we've hired, one full-time now. He's taken all of my accounts, which is really good, which helps now getting me out of Google Ads management, which I don't really like that much anyways. But it's coming along pretty well, the guy that we've got. Still some growing pains with it. I wanted to kind of figure out if there's any way to accelerate that process of training people up from minimal Google Ads experience in-house, what the kind of framework is for.
So the way to accelerate learning, but also completely strip out, this is going to sound bad, but critical thinking and therefore room for error, is to really automate the process. So you don't just use a SOP or a checklist, you automate as much of it as you can, because even with a checklist, people can screw up. And also with the checklist, you often need context. Essentially automate as much of it as you can, so then it's just a checks and balances process. So someone very new can come in. I'd say hiring someone completely green is probably a little bit risky, but someone with very minimal experience can come in and bolt into the process. So literally you need to do X, Y, and Z. We get a report out the other side. Someone else then has to validate that, a yes or a no. Prime example would be writing a new advert. It's like, follow this process. This is how we write ad copy here. It might be looking at competitors. It might be using this formula. It might be using ChatGPT. It might be using the whole lot. That gets output into a spreadsheet, and then someone has to confirm that that's okay before it can go into the account. So it just removes the risk that you're going to screw up, but they're immediately doing something valuable. It gets a little bit more tricky with changes in the account. What I did is normally get them to work on reports. So this is how the account is. Here's the situation. What's the next step? Go through our SOP. What's the next step? I want you to tell me the steps you're going to take. This is not live. You're not going to do it in the account, or do it in Ads Editor, and then we'll sit, and it wasn't always me, but we'll sit and look at those before we commit them. And why, if you do it in Ads Editor, it means it's ready to commit, as opposed to if you write stuff down, it's like, well, you've got to do the job again. I think using scripts more, which is something I've neglected over the years, because automation and all this, that, and the other, and sort of scripts have kind of filtered out of our agency when they shouldn't really, because they can speed up the process. So
one of the integral things we've been doing is the speed report that you introduced. I think it was like 6 months ago. That's been like such a game changer for us. So it's like, and within ClickUp as well. Yeah, absolutely. Like then we've got the kind of the table of the progress on the month so far, the KPI targets, and then we include like the notes of what you've done and the reason why. You know, instead of just being like, removed this or changed this, but it's like you did this because of this, and explain what, show your reasoning, show the screenshots, take the time to understand, to be like, this is why I did it. Because there's no necessarily wrong answer for doing something if you've got a good reason for it.
That's the critical thinking part that for a new person is very, very difficult, and it's overwhelming. Even if you give them rules, like it needs to spend X amount and it needs to hit this KPI, it's like, well, okay, where do I go from there? So if you, that's why I like compartmentalizing the work. Even if you get them to work on specific things, and it might not even be the Google Ads account. It might be monitoring some accounts that someone else is even working on, and they flag up problems, but also working on landing pages and ad copy, which is lower risk because it has to go through the drafting process first. I think the scary part about Google Ads is it's live, so you can churn through changes for the sake of changes. Which, you know, again, going back to the process, Ads Editor, or dump to a sheet to show us what you're going to do. Yes, and then when they get more confident, the speed report's beautiful because it's simple, it's quick, and they'll do it.